Okay, let's see how this works. Ahoy, everyone out there. I know it's been a while. Yes, morning. I know you're from Australia. Thank you for tuning in. Only as someone who's probably up as earlier, in this case as late as Australia, will be tuning in now. I'll get into why we were delayed in a bit, but let me just do the entire spiel first. So let me just make sure our audio levels are working here. If you can hear me out there, definitely let me know before then. Yep, audio works. Yeah, and we have a good camera this time and everything. So, welcome to the DCG 201 live stream channels. Quick introduction about myself. I'm known as Sidepocket on the interwebs. I'm one of the two co-founders of a computer hacker collective group known as DCG 201, formerly known as DEF CON 201 or DC 201. We are one of the many DEF CON groups across the United States and around the world. We normally meet third Friday of the month. I think we're still planning a physical meeting third Friday, but we're going to have a digital live stream at possibly a later date. I know it's originally Sunday after that. Oh wow, okay, so it's past midnight for you. Feels like it's past midnight for me, but I'll explain why in a moment. And if you are more interested in what we're all about, I'm just going to post some links here right in the chat. Our website, again, I think our website will finally be cleared up in October. It seems like every good thing's going to happen for us, particularly in October. But in the meantime, we have our Medium blog up. That has links also to our Right As blog if you want something that's more text-based. We're also all over the different social medias. Our two popular ones are Twitter at DEFCON201NJ and just DEFCON201 on Instagram. But we're also on the hostx.social instance of Mastodon. We're on minds.com. We're on GitHub. We're on all sorts of things. If you want a complete list of that plus other streaming options, I just posted our link tree right there in chat. I'll be also posting that later on. And finally, before we go into the intro here, because I'm going to really try to get through this episode, not only because of the subject matter, but that this was supposed to happen 2 hours ago, and this didn't happen, but that died. We have extended our charity run until the end of October. We are going to be raising money, as we have been for the past 2 months, in trying to raise funds for the National Abortion Federation. They think of them kind of like, to some degree, an EFF for reproduction rights. That's right, I said reproduction rights, that hot button topic. Not only because they cover more than just abortion, despite the name, they cover all sorts of sexual health and also contraceptive and reproductive topics, both men and women. But they also have a lawyer team that's trying to combat the terrible Roe Wade decision in court, as well as putting boots on the ground. And note that even if you don't have a uterus, you probably know someone who does, unless you're dark sim. And if you are just a human being that exists, particularly in the United States, Roe v. Wade was also a big privacy right thing. So fun fact, because Roe v. Wade is overturned, the U.S. government can now make an excuse, even if you don't have one, of looking into like illegal stuff when it comes to reproduction rights. And they can now legally spy to a certain extent, particularly in your living room, in your own home, and don't have to consent for that because that was originally under Roe v. Wade. So overall privacy, never mind people who have uteruses are screwed over, but also privacy is now even more dead than it was before in the United States. So that's why we're trying to raise money for them. There's multiple ways that you can go and donate. If you're on Twitch, you can scroll down and we have a widget that will donate directly to Tiltify. It's a lovely third party. They handle all the money. We're hackers. We're not going to handle any of the money for obvious reasons. Because we're hackers, I want to clarify that if you want to scan that QR code in the corner, that is not a malicious tab attack. I promise you that. That's also a link to Tiltify for mobile users. And finally, which I'll be posting throughout this, hopefully mercifully short stream, and the link just got lost again. So let me find it, and here we go. I'm going to be posting the charity donation link throughout the entire live stream. I also want to note that I love an active chat. I know this is super late, but if anyone has any questions about why am I streaming so late, my crazy hair, all the crazy math and programming topics we're attempting to get into, and I don't expect the demo gods to be happy to meet for me at all, you could definitely ask in chat. But as I always say, if you're just here to be entertained, are you not entertained? And you're here also to just learn from whatever the heck I'm trying to figure out. As I always say, keep lurking and keep learning. starting to learn about hacking, wanted to learn more about the cryptocurrency stuff as well. Well, you kind of came into an odd but a good place, because this is a great segue to tell you what this program is about. So in addition to our in-person and live stream meetups, which we try to have one once every month despite the pandemic and other stupidity going on in our lives, particularly that we're from New Jersey, so that doesn't help much. We also try to stream various specials and ongoing shows. Because I am right now currently the only one that streams, although we're going to be working on that, particularly in 2023. I have two shows that recur. One is called The Master of Unlocking, which happened last Sunday at a very busy McDonald's, where I teach people how to pick locks and bypasses and physical security. And this show, which is called Crypto Barons, as the logo says in the corner over here, is where we look at cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies as technologies. A little prompt, because it's been a while since we've done this stream. I am also interested in, I'm the OG crypto, as in cryptography, as well as cryptozoology and crypto Judaism. But I, from the start, have been very interested in the Satoshi Nakamoto paper and watching different technologies emerge from that entire white paper and spawn into this entire ecosystem. But my frustration as someone who, as a hacker, likes to see how things work and try to understand how these work, I hated when you would hear about something really cool going on in blockchain or cryptocurrency. You would attempt to look it up on YouTube or on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever, and you would just be bombarded with endless fluff pieces and snake oil salesman stuff, and nothing to do with the actual platform that you're looking at. So that's what this show is all about. I think that's why it's gotten as popular as it is. We actually take a look at stuff. We look over a white paper for a project, see how it looks. If there's math, we try to check out the math on it, even though I personally don't do very well at math. Surprise there, that's going to be a pin that, because this is going to show up later on this episode. We try to, if there's test nets, we try to run them. If there's wallets, we try to run them. If thankfully, because most of them are, if they're open source, we take a look at the coding on there. If we can try to run the code, that's even better. So we actually look at the real underlying infrastructure. Sometimes we peek a bit into finance and community stuff, just because sometimes it relates to the tech platform itself and what it's trying to accomplish. But we look at these things, and because we're not sponsored by anyone, especially anything in the cryptocurrency or blockchain or DeFi space, as it's called, despite my polka dot shirt, which I got for free when I went to a convention, we and myself will always give our direct onion opinions, keyword opinions, about what we see on this show. And in fact, in past episodes, we have particularly looked at stuff that seemed like they were snake oil salesman shit, and turns out that it is, and breakdown of why this is a scam. And we're going to be looking more into those later this year. But to get into today's episode, this does have a main thing, but it's more of a bit of a potpourri. We're going to be looking at yet more blockchain and cryptocurrency code hacks and attacks, and we're going to be centering it around a very interesting blog and GitHub platform by the notorious, as our popular tweet recently said, you want to do something that seems really ethically unsound? Try Russia. So from our Russian friends up there, weightlifting grizzly bears and Siberian bears and stuff like that, even though Siberia is nowhere close to that. But we're going to take a look at that, and they have a bunch of code and cool math stuff, and that's kind of what this episode's going to be about. And then, just as a heads up, next month in October, which I will get into a bit more detail at the end, is again, we're going into spoopy season. Fuck pumpkin spice, that can sit all over there. He who controls the pumpkin spice controls the white girls. We're going to go into hacker spooky mode, and whether it's our meeting, which Hacktoberfest will return, or some of the other stuff that we're going to be doing on this show and others, including some really awesome specials, I can't wait for that. So let's get right into what today's episode is going to be all about and pray to the demo god. So here we go. Let's go to the information screen. Why is the scroll not working? There we go. Oh, real quick, as we transition here, let me explain why we're so late. So originally, obviously, we were supposed to start this, let's tilt up, at 8 p.m. And I'm in like this awesome secret underground headquarters, as you can call it, hence the better lighting, and like I'm basically in the void of the Matrix. How? Not going to explain. That's a secret hacker trick. But I'm here. The only thing I'll give a heads up on is that there might be cats. That might be a thing, because there are cats in this weird matrix construct, and they, hacker things always attract the felines. So don't be alarmed if that shows up. In fact, I'm pretty sure everyone in chat's going to cheer when that happens. But the reason why I was late is that, believe it or not, I literally had everything to set up to just instantly stream at 8, except for connecting the internet. And it's not even Windows, but whatever stupid hardware combined with how dumb this version of Windows was set up, I had to legit put together a bunch of hacks, and then finally came up with a super simple secret hack that I'm not going to say on air. Wink. The friends over there, I think, is chuckling. But that we had to set all that up, and now everything works. So nothing major. There wasn't like a secret gas attack or the FBI or anything like we've had on past episodes. I wish that was a joke. But it was literally just, this machine sucks, and I'm hoping in 2 months to just get a better machine. So real quick, before we get into the episode, this is the, again, we're trying to rebuild the website. I think our website's going to officially finally relaunch in October. Probably the first 2 weeks, if not the first week of October, but this is our Medium blog. I'll actually post that link in chat. I'm going to be sharing a lot of links today on the stream. And I just realized that what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to intro what we're going to be talking about, like show a bit more details. And then we're going to go through the first 2 articles, get there, and then we're going to take like a literal 1 to 2 minute break, just because I just remembered something that would be extra helpful to set up for the stream. And then we're just going to go right into this and plow through this episode. So the first 2 things I want to get out of the way are the kind of the 2 big news, both failures, I might add, that has happened in sort of the blockchain tech scene. The first is our awesome friends at Avalanche. Now, we did an episode, I believe it was 4 episodes ago, we covered AVAX and the Avalanche network, and we were not only really impressed with how everything was set up, but, and I still agree, and we're going to be revisiting Avalanche at multiple points, that there was just, the documentation was absolutely brilliant, and there was just so much information. It was all done in plain English. It really helped you walk through things such as how to mint your own tokens on the network, how to create your own tokens, how to create an NFT, all the stuff that you would need to do on the Avalanche network, creating parachains and stuff like that, was all there. And they even built everything into browsers. So, for example, as we've done on a previous episode with Avalanche, they have their own code. Their own code compiling and repo, so you can actually code directly in the browser, and then if you want to run that locally, you can actually get pull from that and just run the program instead of having to load up VS Codium and all of that sort of stuff. So still have really great things to say about it. The problem is that there is a major bug that popped up near the end of August that they're still correcting. It's a giant vulnerability that basically has a very good chance, if it's not happening already, to literally kill not just the Avalanche network, but the actual chain itself. I'm going to show the report from, I'm going to butcher this person's name here, unfortunately, their username, Karalabi. Again, I apologize. I'm an American. I have no idea how to speak English, even though I was born and raised learning it. But there's the link, and you can read along with me. But let me just make sure that it's zoomed in enough. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and we're going to read, because it's not very long, but we're going to read the report. It has some pictures in it. So this report is a DOS vector that, if properly implemented, would have been used to take down the entire Avalanche network. Apparently, the vulnerability was originally found, and again, I'm going to butcher names, even though, if you haven't noticed on the episode before, I do have Slavic ancestry. I'm probably going to screw this up. So in March 29th of this year, it was found by, here we go, Peter Sarlagi. I think that's how you pronounce that, but I'm going from a very specific Slavic pronunciation style. Of course, there's many different languages and versions of languages in the Slavic pierogi belt, so apologize to Peter if I screwed up your name. I meant all good intentions. And then it was patched by Peter's suggestion, and then on the 30th, the fix was released in the Avalanche Go instance on version 1.7.9. Then in September, the embargo ended. once the apricot fork happened on its 6th version, and now it's been made public. So here was the vulnerability that happened earlier this year that would have killed this entire network. So apparently, and the gist of it is, it's a remote node crash via a malicious peerless package. Oh boy. You know, it's funny because when we actually looked at the Avalanche network last time, we legit said, oh, we have a couple people in there. Hi, people out there. We literally said that if there was one potential vector point that we didn't properly look at that could actually do like damage to the internet if a malicious actor wanted to attack the whole network for this ecosystem, it would probably be with the peer listings. And apparently that's it. So let's see, the network communication via the message command that we looked into on our Avalanche episode uses utils slash wrappers to pack and unpack messages. In theory, as we brought out, it says that there should be no invalid data that gets accepted over the wire, but apparently they tried unpacking an X509 certificate, and while it did attempt to not invalidate data, as you can see with this snippet, especially with, that the len was set to 0 and then it returns, that was not the case. Or specifically, as they wrote here, the first check that checks for the length of the encoded certificate will accept and return nil for an empty cert instead of just rejecting it. That allows you to just put a bunch of bad stuff in there to summarize, because we're going to get into bit details down below. The fix apparently was doing a p.add and then an error bad length to check for the length of that check string. And alternatively, you could also make your own parse certificate that will process that in post if this check system doesn't find out first. So this is an issue because they decoded the peerless packet, part of the remote handshake with an arbitrary untrusted node. The local node will iterate through all the peer certs, ooh, that's bad, announced in the handshake, and will attempt to convert them into a node ID, which will access the internals of the nil cert and completely destroy it. So you can, let me just make sure that the text is properly visible. Yeah, I'm just going to, oh, geez, why do I keep picking on the wrong thing? Let me just zoom a little bit more in. There we go. We'll make the text nice and chunky. So as you can see here, it did a classic panic runtime. There's an invalid memory address on nil, and so now there's a segment violation. And then as it goes through its go routine, it's just accepting any code on that peerless packet, which means again you can put arbitrary code and just run things through the nil cert as it blows up. So the two ways that they said that this is specifically can be abused on Avalanche is you can run a non-validator node that feeds malicious packets to the peers it connects, and then obviously eventually propagate through the entire network. If it runs unchecked, and everything is screwed. As you know, this is normally just a basic kind of thing. It would take a bit longer, but the amount of poisoning it would do to the nodes would be awful, especially since it will start iteratively dropping all line in like a cascading sequence. It's just going to be awful. The other thing that they could apparently do with this is register a new validator. This is a big thing. We're going to be probably in October in particular, we're going to be talking about validation systems and how almost every time if you've heard a blockchain actively being broken, or even a power chain, it always usually has to do with a validator. This is 51% hacking. This is the all bread and butter of how these sort of things work. So basically, there would be a new validator that is technically not valid, but because nil imploded, the network thinks it's valid, and then they just start injecting malicious packets. And since all the nodes in the network connected to all the validators, it would instantly kill the network right there. So basically, their choices that you would have had would be a slow poison drip or an instant cannonball to the face. Either way, this is bad. You don't want your validator nils to blow up and then allow arbitrary code in. So let's see. So to show this, let me scroll back up. Karalabi here, he ran uh, his own local Avalanche code base, and he ran it against itself, PvP, via local network. So he wanted to see if this is not just theory, that you could actually do this. So he's using a miniature network to attack. So he said the first step is to inject an attack payload while creating the peerless packet. So he just brute forced. This is classic malicious .go packet right here. You have your indexing. You have two different outbound messages for the two different checks. Peerless here. Yep, and you do a bypass throttling after the cert reads. The outbound message is error. You run the BC packet. If it's the other one, you return the outbound message, and that should overflow into that. He built it under build.sh or whatever you would use. I don't know if this would work on the full extent because the Avalanche network is pretty big, but the fact that this code can even run at all is just wow. Second thing is you run the malicious nodes head-to-head against each other. So for the local test, he just used the default networking tool on LAN. The tool by default does not log ST. I always my favorite log will always be STD out. Sorry, moment of silence for juvenile humor to persist yet again on the stream. So it doesn't log STD out and dir or DERR data from the internal archive nodes it runs. So he just modified the code so it prints out the contents of the STD ERR to see if there's any sort of panics that would actually happen. So he wrote this chunk on the network.go here, so it can do the check for that. And then he deployed an example network and see the two nodes fight, and did that. And let's see this output here. Yep, panic, runtime error, invalid. Yep, the exact thing that was predicted. So it does all the different GitHub parts, panic, and so it does panic on both nodes. And then finally, on the error chunk down here, it's now just starting to add all of the, if there was the malicious payload, let's see where he wrote it. For the second outbound, it loads in at the bottom over here. So yeah, like even though this was a smaller local network test, wow. And the fact that they could have just, like, someone could have, back in like March or January of this year, could have just either took the whole network down right when it was about beautifully getting off, and or could have like basically poisoned the network slowly, in which at this case we would only just find out probably just now that this all happened. That's just nuts. But I do want to give Avalanche props to what it is, because obviously bugs and vulnerabilities and errors are going to show up on any sort of hardware and software thing you can do. And I am impressed that the bug was found. Peter was, that they listened to Peter, and that he was rewarded for it on the day it was found. And then he released the day after on the update, which was the next update patch for it. So I will say that I am impressed by the response and turnaround. Usually, especially in the crypto sphere, either they will try to pretend that the network is flawless and we're brilliant engineers, there's no way in hell we basically coded a ham sandwich poorly. That they either just completely ignore it until the ship sinks and then they blame everyone else. I'm looking at you, Elon Musk. Or that that they do instance response, but due to bureaucracy and a bunch of poor pipelines and ego and other dumb things, that it's not patched until weeks, maybe even a month or two later. And then usually by that point it's too late, especially with the short turnaround, because usually the longer, it's just for those who don't. Because a future episode, I will say here, we are going to actually look at bug bounties, particularly with blockchain and cryptocurrency software. That's going to be a future episode. It's probably going to happen in November. Just putting it out there, because we do 2 episodes a month. Because, like, let's say this was reported on the 29th, and let's say it wasn't patched until like April 8th. The first thing that I'm going to think about, and anyone's going to think about, is that if we found this bug that means there was already hackers using it. So one, which we don't know about in this report, I don't know if they went and looked back and see if there was any discrepancies with the way the validators work and stuff in the past, because this could probably be attributed to it, because you don't know when the bug actually formed, in what version. I mean, you can try, but it's more important that it was found. This is only the date it was found, not the date the bug was created in a certain version of Avalanche's chain system. And then the other thing is that the longer it's like a real-life disease. The longer you wait, the worse all the symptoms of it get. So the potential result is death, or in this case, the entire network would have gone down. So, it's shocking that a major vulnerability like this existed, but bravo that they literally were able to correct everything in 24 hours, and that they actually listened to the hackers' suggestion and implementation. So I still think Avalanche is good in my book. Anytime you look at particularly any sort of service or software service, like for example, and then we'll move on to the next thing, and then we'll take a short break and go into this. I use, it's public knowledge, I use Proton Mail. And the actual reason, even though there's obviously issues with Proton Mail, of why I remained one of their customers, and this is not, I'm not sponsored by Proton Mail, this is something I've just been using for years, is because, and Proton VPN is, they had a very comprehensive, okay, when shit hits the fan, how do we do incident response? How do we patch? How do we inform? And when do we inform our customer base? And because they had that all planned out, and that they followed it every single time something would happen, including even just geopolitical stuff involving with the email and VPN services, that's why I stay on. So it's more or less of, you want to make your program as best as you possibly can, and your systems as hardened as they can. But to me, just as important, and perhaps even more important than just trying to have your best hardened system possible, a bigger thing that you have to look into is more of like, inevitably you're going to get hacked, inevitably the shit's going to hit the fan. How do you respond to that? Because that's going to be more telling of the health of what you've created than, in my opinion, anything else besides bad PR. There was a real-world example I think I was going to bring up. It's the same thing with banks. The reason why banks are pretty good at going against like counterfeit money and different scans is because they have a comprehensive response program. They know someone eventually is going to shortchange them or stuff. It's more important that they know how to deal with it, and that their customers know how they're going to deal with it, and that's competent. So just that was one bit of news. Now let's go for something really funny that's actually really quick, and that is Optify. So from what I understand, Optify is some sort of, it's a DEX portfolio built in Solana. I heard about it initially through NFT stuff. We were actually originally going to do an episode talking specifically about them and other DEX portfolioing systems. Unfortunately, this piece of hilariousness happened where they had a major incident report. Let's read the TL:DR. We sincerely apologize for the programming incident leading to the sudden closure of the Optify mainnet program, and they couldn't recover it. Basically, what happened is that, and you can laugh. I've already laughed enough at this. Me and a bunch of other friends in the Matrix Void here were laughing about this the week it happened, because this happened earlier this week. They used when they upgraded their code, they were doing patch fixes and whatever, they used the string Solana program close instead of Solana program exit. So what the programmer wanted to do was they wanted to, after they run the current code, that it updates, it exits out, and then that way you can just restart OpenFi on Solana at a whim. By using close instead of exit, I know they kind of sound synonyms, but they're a little crowbar separation there. Close under Solana means to essentially ignore all the code that's above it. So the entire Optify mainnet erased itself, it Ouroboros itself out of existence. And because this is blockchain tech, which means once you do something, there's no undo button. All of it is permanently gone. They can't access anything on the chain because the main section to access it, because there's obviously no backdoors for security stuff, is down. So they had a fund of a stable coin, 61,000 USDC, which means it was pretty much exactly that exact price in USD. $661,000 is now permanently locked into the PDAs on that chain, all because of, as I said, who would win in this fight? Master open source blockchain GNU wizards creating the most optimum Solana code on one of the biggest DEX networks on the planet, or three burly boy words, which is Solana program close. So it's just, I don't know. I grew up in the 90s primarily, bits of the 80s, but primarily in the 90s, and it's just been so long that I've seen literally a string of texts, or essentially a coding error, implode a big utility. Like back in the day, you would, like, MySpace would do something and just kill their entire website because they didn't, like, they stupidly used CSS and didn't close a bracket somewhere, and so their whole website goes down. That rarely happens anymore, so to see something like this is just, to use a show from a shockingly mature cartoon. This warms the cockles of my heart. I don't even know what cockles are, but that's all of that. So apparently they're going to use their backup funds to return all the users' deposits and set all positions manually on Pyth Oracle. Oh, God. This started happening a couple of days ago on September 2nd. So basically they're wiping their ass with a cheese grater. This is amazing. And there's the, let's see here, how did this happen? That's the ID address. I'm going to copy and paste to this Medium article, and in a second we're going to take a short break, and then we'll finish up the episode in the next about 30 minutes, I will say. Player address at around 6 UTC, August 29th. This is very recently. They started a deployment using the following command line with their deployment address. Oh, this is a problem. Remember we were warning about Anchor previously when we were talking about, wasn't Holochain, it was, I'm trying to remember which specific, it might have been Red we were talking about, Anchor. No, sorry, Luna Terror with Anchor and how it, I mean, that was a completely different thing, but it imploded. So I'm just convinced that if you built anything on Anchor protocol, you're just cursed. So they did Anchor deploy. The deployment transaction took much longer than usual. Instead of returning a success sign quite soon, possibly because of its bad network status. So they aborted deployment with Control-C. Later on, they found 17 point blah sol had been transferred to the new buffer account in the deployment text. So that left their wallet, and that means a new buffer account was created but was not going to be used by the program account. So they wanted to get rid of those tokens in the new buffer. So they ran Solana program close -u mainnet beta. So they were trying to, I guess, remember this on the beta that then they put into production, and they put the two addresses as it says here, which I could have predicted. Error: the following arguments will not provide, which is -s buffers. So they saw the buffers part missing, so they thought the memory phrases created the new buffer. They didn't get the account for that buffer for the phrases, so they then deployed the text. The text deployment was interrupted, so they couldn't get the 70 point sol back. And then they remembered that they succeeded in collecting the sol tokens of buffer, so they closed that account. And then they ran Solana program close and these new wallets on that, and it was executed. Failure was executed successfully. They got the balance back, which now, because of gas and stuff, was 43 point whatever number. And then they deployed the program a second time, and then they realized they were locked out because the Solana close completely closed all the entire network that was previously, again, closed. Does that exit will actually exit out of the program even if you've made it inactive. So yeah, so what they basically did is that they somehow, to use master of unlocking terms, lock the inside of the door, left the key inside the building, walked out, and then remembered they don't have any backup keys, and the key's currently locked in the building. And unlike a normal building where you could, the police could, or fire department could break through the windows or something, whoops, perfect cat timing. Whoops. And yeah, so that was, if you heard a bunch of, there's a lot of laughing going on in the crypto sphere because most of them are idiots and snake oil salesmen that deserve it. But if you particularly heard a hefty laugh and you saw Optify, which I did, trending on like Twitter and Instagram and such and Medium, that was this incident where they basically they somehow made exiting Vim seem normal and competent, and just killed their entire network and all the funds and people that were using on it. Whoops. It'll be interesting to see if they manage to claw themselves out or just completely shut down and cut, run, pump, dump because of this whole situation. Kind of like what Terra Luna has been doing as they slowly go back to normalcy, but not relevancy. Let's put it that way. All right, so right here we have the crypto deep tech. Like I said, this is the main part. We're going to take a short 1-2 minute break. I have to get a bit more water and set 1 or 2 quick things up. It's going to take about a minute or two. But to go into our next section that we'll be doing, and then we'll end the stream. And as our main course is this very interesting blog, which I will actually post the URL in so that you can all get like if you want to preview beforehand before we get into this. You can do so while we're on our 1-2 minute break. I just randomly, this was recommended to me. They have a Medium. They recommended this. I found they had a website. And this is this crazy Russian blog website. And all it's about is they find different vulnerabilities in various crypto and blockchain tech, and then they make tools and LAN replicas so that you can test all this stuff out for yourself and audit and do hacks on your white hat hacking terms, your own network. But I'm pretty sure if you wanted to be mean, wink, you could probably do that too, especially with this .ru. So we're going to get into that for roughly half hour, but I just need to set 2 things and get some more water and go go figure out where the bathroom is in this blank white construct. So we're going to put on some quick, simple music, and I'll be back in roughly 2 minutes max. Okay, everyone? Enjoy the music. I'll be right back. Doo-doo-doo. Here we go. Let's see. AFK. I'll be back. let's get back on the shindig. Yay! Just the camera a bit. There we go. Now my poofy hair's in the frame. So hi, we took a short break. Everything should be updated now. Let's double check. Oh, by the time I talk through everything, it'll be outdated. But hi, welcome back to Crypto Barons. This is the show where we look at blockchain technology, blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies. That's technologies under the DCG 201, formerly known as DEFCON 201, live streaming channels. Just as a reminder, if you want to follow us and get updates on when we stream, if you can't remember our schedule, because as you can tell with the 2-hour delay time, sometimes we don't even know when we live stream. But if you want to get updates on those, as well as just to help out all the different streaming channels, you can follow us on any of our 3 main channels, which is Twitch, DLive, or YouTube. When we do, we get little notifications that pop up and cheer you on. And even if we're not streaming, you can follow us anytime. Again, you'll get notifications when we go on stream and a bunch of other cool goodies for all of them. I also want to remind that we are streaming on some other platforms, including Diode Zone, which is an amazing instance of PeerTube, run by our awesome friends over there. We also have an instance on NVIDIA, so you can watch us in secret while on the Tor network. And unfortunately, because there are still some grandmas, including myself, stuck on there, we are streaming on the Facebooks. You're probably wondering if you're on Facebook why you can't properly chat with us. There is a way to chat, but you actually have to do your own little mini hack in order for it to work. So I just posted the link in there if you happen to be stuck on Facebook, if you want to come over and chat with us. I will also like to remind again that up until the very last day of October, I'll see if it does this one more last time. Sorry. So you're probably wondering why there's some random odd spikes with the stream very recently. It's because I'm updating 2 Linux instances right now, and that was the one thing I forgot to do, and so this is the part that's going to take a while, and sometimes that does eat into the bandwidth. Absolute worst comes to worst, if it's not finished up soon and it keeps doing this, we'll once again just look at the code and not run any of the code, but and if that's the case, then we'll use probably the next episode as a follow-up, because I already know what I'm going to do next episode. And we'll go and we'll actually run the stuff from this episode. So just putting that out, that's a my fault thing, I apologize. We would have had this problem if we streamed at 8 p.m. too. Blech. So anyhow, let's get back in the meat and potatoes of things right here. So let's switch over to desktop mode. This should actually go by shockingly fast. So, once again, I was just looking around on Medium, trying to figure out, I already know what I'm going to do particularly in October. I'm going to do in October for Crypto Barons. I know what I'm going to do, on this day and then this episode and stuff. And I have people who I want to be interviewed on here, and they're like, awesome, sure. But I didn't know I was going to do this episode. And I was actually just browsing around to see what sort of DEF CON and Black Hat stuff that I missed on Medium, because everyone's doing their write-ups now, especially with all the CTFs. And I found the Medium blog of this website that I just posted in chat called Crypto Deep Tech RU, and I started reading through it, and it just absolutely fascinates me. It's both in Russian and English. They also have their own YouTube, but the only languages, as far as I can tell, that they have available is Russian, which is why we're not airing any of the videos. Worst comes to worst, if we don't get the coding stuff, we might air a tiny piece of the video. This is actually updating pretty well now. So, and what this platform seems to be is they just look into crypto analysts and blockchain tech. So it's all the really nitty-gritty, nerdy stuff, but in addition, they don't just do write-ups. They, from what I understand, they write their own tools that you can use to audit and hack various blockchain technologies. They claim that you're supposed to use this for white teaming, but a tool is a tool. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just putting it out there. You give people a hammer. Some people will build things. Some people will break things and people. So, and even if you're building stuff with a hammer, you could either build a house or a prison, right? So things happen. And they have their own GitHub repos so that you can actually test out these tools or these simulated attack environments on your own desktop. And in this instance, we have our own Linux subsystems, which means that nothing should be able to break through the VM process, although never say never, because it's this freaking live stream. And we're going to take a quick look at some of these things. Again, like I said, even if we streamed at 8, this is going to be a short episode. Like I originally said, I thought I was going to stream to 10, but I was more thinking, well, we'll probably run at 9:15 or something. So here we go. So let's look at some of these. And also, if you want to follow along, let me actually refresh this page. So we do have a GitHub at DEFCON at DCG 201 titled under our old name, DEFCON 201. So github.com/DEFCON 201. And if you are on Twitch, and I'm going to post this link in chat, every Git repo I always post a link to in the chat as you watch. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. But if you are on Twitch, in addition to the National Abortion Federation donation widget, which, by the way, you can also donate by scanning that QR code in the bottom, or as I'm about to post, the actual donation page for Tiltify that we use, so that way we don't touch any of the money because we are the hacksaws and we don't trust ourselves by default. But there's the link for that. You can see the GitHub widgets we always look at these live streams, whether it's the show or our meetings, and follow along with us without having to leave the actual live stream. What's really awesome about Crypto Deep Tools is that they have made a repo that also links to all their other tools. So that's why there's only one thing pinned that you can see on our GitHub repo, because you can follow along with us right there. And even then, I'll be posting individual links as we look at some of this stuff. So let's go from like the front part to the end part. So as it says here, Crypto Deep Tools are assessed scripts. Let me just make sure everyone can read it. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. I should make a shirt that, because I'm also trying to relaunch the store at the end of October, early November, so you can get like cool swag with DCG 201 stuff. And I should probably make a shirt that says, let's zoom a little bit more, and have like a broken in, like burned in on the screen zoom button, because I should just start doing the Hollywood thing and go enhance, you know. But as they wrote as themselves, Crypto Deep Tools, it says scripts for detailing crypto analysis of blockchain networks in cryptocurrency, particularly with Bitcoin. All their repositories, we have a nice breakdown here. The majority of it is in C, with a chunk of it in C++. With that's really fascinating. It makes sense because since most of their stuff involves Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the oldest and one of the oldest existing chains, it makes sense because I believe Bitcoin itself is done with the C languages, as opposed to some of the modern stuff, which is basically a weird mix of Rust, Go, Python with some Java to make them web interfaceable. So that happens. It does have a percentage of Python code. I can imagine that's going to be the wrapper. Uses CUDA for some reason. We're going to find out. Maybe that's one of the tools on here that uses CUDA. I have no idea. Bit of M4, Jupyter Notebook stuff, again, for like logs and display. And then 0.8 of a bunch of stuff that has no idea what the fuck these hackers are writing. And before we get into this, I just also want to remind that if anyone has any questions about what I'm going to be covering in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and like my crazy hair, and it's going to be a lot of math, you can ask away in chat. But if you also just want to watch me try to run code, keyword is try to run code and have it not to fully work, which is usually what happens on this episode, and we usually have to hack our way out of it, and it's a miracle. As I always say, you can always keep lurking and keep learning. So, I just want to quickly look at my Kali display. I'm not going to put it on the stream, but there's Postgres. They're replacing it because it's obsolete. That was an interesting prompt. All right. Someone said auto removes that. So here we go. So let's look at some of these things. So let's see. So the first thing that I have listed here as a highlight is, I'm just going to read the entire title. This is, by the way, this blog is very Black Hat USA. Search for BTC coins on an earlier version of Bitcoin Core with critical vulnerability OpenSSL 0.9.8 under CVE 2008-0166. Yeah, it's this type of blog. Again, this is like, you're going to see, even when we can't get like code to work and stuff, that this blog is kind of like a text version of like what we try to achieve on this show, which is like, I don't want to hear about like, you know, DeFi and GameFi and bear market and all that crap. I want to see CVE vulnerabilities. I want to see programming fails. I want to do programming fails. You know, it's this is kind of what we're all about here. So what they're particularly looking at, as we see over on the GitHub here, is they're exploiting this particular vulnerability in the Debian version of OpenSSL bug. So they have all the commands here, which again, because everything's set up, we might go into really quick. I just need to clear the screen here and do some scrollies. screen adjustment. There we go. So we'll look at that in a second, but let's look at let's look at this because this is the thing I want to focus on. Then we'll dabble into some of the other ones as we go on. So let's see here. So in this article, we will create a tool that will generate a Bitcoin address under P2P KH, or as I like to jokingly call it, peer-to-peer Kingdom Hearts, because I'm that much of a dork, using this particular brand of CVE vulnerability. This is a research project to find Bitcoins on earlier version of Bitcoin Core software client, which seems like it's redundant, but you would be shocked that because of how much Bitcoin has been forked and how its core mitochondrial like DNA and its ancient C programming, I say ancient when I predate all of this, not C, the Bitcoin itself, I'm older than that. But since some of it's cloned, and a lot of times they go to older versions, so they have their whatever they forked it from to be more malleable, this is kind of a thing, and this is very important. So apparently this vulnerability was populated with the process ID only. Now, let's look at the Broadcom of the knowledge of this. Let's see. This is when it was detected. It's an old vulnerability. It's at least a year old. So again, it's an older version of Bitcoin, but shocking that it's this new yet this old. So VIM constraints OpenSSL, which is below mentioned critical vulnerability. Obsolete version OpenSSL was detected on the host. Support for version 0.9.8 and 1.0.0 ended in 2015. No further releases on security fixes will be available. And the fact that they were even using something that was this outdated on even just a 4 years ago or early version, not great. Let's see here. Due differences between the entities and the size of the log, the output is architecture dependent. So it's actually very important with this vulnerability if you're running on not only between 32-bit and 64-bit systems, but if you are doing it on the 32-bit end with i386 or PowerPC, and the 64-bit is obviously only supported by AMD and IA64 types. PID0 is the core, and PID_max is not reaching by porting, so there were only 32,767 possible random numbers of streams in the architecture. So let's see, the Bitcoin software client, yep, uses the OpenSSL like it was originally designed. This part I didn't know. Specifically, it uses a function, EC key generate key, to generate Bitcoin addresses to receive payment. Older versions of Bitcoin Core generated and stored 100 key in wallet.dat, or DAT. A new key is only generated when a Bitcoin payment is received. Thus, the Bitcoin Core software client maintains a pool of 100 unused Bitcoin key addresses. The state of the internal random number generation depends on what calls were made to the library the OpenSSS prior to the call of the generation of that key. Challenges affecting the internal state of the RNG, or the random number generator, is, let's see, ren adds are all set, so the adds and the bytes are set to 8, and the total bytes are set to 32. Again, hence the 32 64-bit processors. So this research will go through a lot of all Bitcoin sources to find out what calls were made. This is very intensive. I like this. And that affected the internal state of the RNG. So basically, they're using ye old time machine. I wouldn't be surprised if part of it was archive.org. And looking at older versions of the repos if GitHub doesn't even open them. Because I also know recently something that's been common is people burning or deappreciating older versions of their GitHub repos, so that way old code is still not being circulated, and or that people don't do sleuthing like this. So, but the funny thing is archive.org archives most, as we saw with the Tornado Cache episode last time, it archives most of GitHub's code. So you can still find this stuff anyhow, and even though you can't git pull it, you can still copy, paste it, and run code, so that's always hilarious. So let's see what versions they were able to find. So, see, we have 0.20 all the way, so version 2 to version 10 is a big chunky landscape here, going from 2009 to 2015 with this vulnerability. So it's estimated that the vulnerability was first found, or it was probably first created the end of 2009, and it persisted and remained unfounded and then unupdated because they moved on to better versions in 2015. So that's nuts. So the goal here is to generate private keys for each version of the Bitcoin Core software client. For each process ID and Bitcoin address, use a random number at that critical vulnerability. Let's see. Ultimately, they're going to create a Bitcoin address generator, and everything will be saved as file result txt. So first, to use a very out-of-date slogan, they're going to, quote, make OpenSSL vulnerable again. So for this, they're going to be using Ubuntu 18.04.5, the LTS from Google Colab. And then, so let's see, they set that all up. Let's see, is this a video or a text on how to set this up? And it's all in Russian. I mean, I could go translate it, but I don't think I'll need this. Words to die on, by the way. I don't think I'm going to need this. That never pans out for our show. So let's see here. So they opened it up in Google Colab, and they're going to run cat to see the LBS release, and we got the results here. So yeah, it's the 18.04. Yep, all that checks out. And they're going to go in the Crypto Tools repository, and they're going to clone tools over. Oh, that's neat, because they're actually all listed under there. You can actually use one Git to download all the tools. So that's actually pretty neat. I mean, to pull all the tools. That's pretty awesome. So they go into that particular vulnerability, update and install G++. Actually, let me check something on here. Okay. Right, because I think I have a way more upgraded version on here. I'm going to still try to run it and see what we get. It'll be interesting to see, again, if this is patched out, as it indicates if what the error that's going to stop at. So not only, so first you need G++, so they're going to install the mp3 dev libmpfr dev, and then we're going to run all that. And then I'm just going through this stuff, and then we'll see if we can walk through this. In order for OpenSSL to make the vulnerability again as in the original, okay, so you have to actually do that and patch the system file on it. Yep, open that, run that. So I will put it this way, we'll go through this, but I don't want to run through this particular thing because I do not want to downgrade my Ubuntu here, but we will look at and try to run something from some of the others. The others are going to take no longer than like a minute or two each. So this is interesting. This is a cool way. So basically what they're doing is they're re-getting a certain version of OpenSSL, and basically they're overwriting that version of OpenSSL. So basically to roll it back to an older version to make it vulnerable again to the original system so that they can test this out. So in the LE64 system, you configure that to, no SSL 12. So you're shutting all the previous versions down. We're just focusing on that particular version at 14.4. And then you make them all dependable on it so everything will work. So you go into their original folder that they downloaded, and then you compile their tool together. And then all versions of the Bitcoin Core, so you could download that, and it spits out all this lovely information of their entire library path. Wow. And then you run the CGN tool. So that's the second part of the tool. And when you go to your Google Drive, you'll see a results.txt, and it will have all the EDC keys that are pulled off of it. And you can also pull, because since these pulls are comprehensive, you have both the public and private keys. Now, again, modern Bitcoin, this has been, they're using a different system, and even then, OpenSSL has been upgraded so much and changed that this vulnerability will not work on modern Bitcoin as far as we know. However, if you are working on a forked derivative that is using, especially as a base, an older version of Core, and that hasn't been properly updated on the SSL side, you're in for a world of hurt with this if it's before 2005, because that's absolutely ridiculous. And this is why I love this blog. This is what made me fall in love. And I'll share the GitHub link where you can look at the tools and stuff. This made me fall in love with this blog, and I was like, okay, even if there's other cryptocurrency news, I am going to totally look at this episode. This is totally going to be the next episode that we do. Like, I can't miss out on this. So let's look at some a bit more of these, and then we'll wrap everything up. So let's see here. What can we do? So let's see. So this is kind of an expansion on the first one where they, this is a tool that feeds off the OpenSSL tool, which will, I love this. Get the public key from Bitcoin EDCSA RSZ values from the actual raw text file, which is pretty insane here. So as they said in this one, they're going to be looking at extracting the signatures from the EC DSA. If you remember back, we haven't done our Bitcoin-focused episode. That's probably going to happen in November and December. Believe it or not, I've been meaning to do an episode. It was really supposed to be episode 2, but then we delayed it because we had some cryptocurrency pandemic news we wanted to do as episode 2. Instead, this is like 2 years ago. We've been doing this for 2 years now. Over 2 years, actually. But I do want to, before the end of the year, do an episode that particularly talks about Bitcoin and particularly goes through the exhaustive history of how much infighting and forking and splitting and knifing that the community's done with Bitcoin, which is why Bitcoin has like 8 million bastard children. No wonder why Elon Musk likes it so much. So we haven't covered that, but we did cover our first episode, blockchains, how they work, and we talked about ECDSA and how that while you do have to do further encryption on it, your public key is something that you as a user are supposed to put out there. You're not supposed to be able to pull it from the actual text file because the EDCA is supposed to be authenticated in that, so you can't access the raw text to pull that public key out willy-nilly and just do scans. This is the bastardization of that. So to go to history here, so this whole vulnerability and blockchain issue was discovered by Neil Schreider, who I'll share his GitHub right here. We're just going to briefly go over this. We're going to be doing this for a lot of them, and then we'll try run one piece of code that won't kill the machine, hopefully, and then we'll be good. And there's actually an awesome PDF that I'm going to poke my head into right now that might actually have the math. This is the OG white paper. Let's see how long this white paper. Ooh, it's 26 pages long. We're not going through all 26 pages, obviously. This is by Nicholas D. Curtis, Pina Emradag, which again, I apologize for butchering your name, Filippo Vastoria, and good old Nils here. It was called Private Key Recovery Combination Attacks on the Extreme Fragility of Popular Bitcoin Key Management, Wallet, and Cold Storage Solutions. Remember the cold storage episodes? That was also when we talked about ADCS. In the presence of poor random number generated events or RNG events. I just want to see if there's any. There's usually math in these. I just want to see if there's any math. So there's not really math, although they break this down really well. Instead, what they're doing is it's a lot of data visualization. So the MRN mass is seeding. Yep, and it goes through the SHA 256 like it's supposed to, adds that to there, and it generates the private key, which then generates the public key. And yeah, and you have the two derivatives, which two seedings develop two different Ks, the SK and the PK, as we covered in our cold storage episode years ago. Yep, here's some math. All right, I have to laugh here. Did you guys just see this? I'm going to zoom in a bit more. I love this. This should be the autobiography of that one blockchain bro that was causing a storm because he's an idiot. That black hat on the board. The neutering of N. That sounds like a Dark Souls spinoff right there. This is a lot of visualization. So basically, using all of this data visualization along with all of this math, which again I linked into the chat, figured out the potential weakness of these blockchain transactions, which then again allowed him to pull the actual private key out of any search address directly from the raw text file, which again, you're not supposed to be able to do. And this is also an issue because if you use other kind of wishy-washy techniques that I'm not going to explain on here, not only because time, but for legal reasons, you can possibly, especially with an older version, attempt to actually generate, or sorry, reverse engineer and figure out the generated private key as well, which I would describe as it's the equivalent of trying to kill someone by going up their urethra. It's really bad. So that's another insane bit of tech thing here. And as they did with the follow-up here, which we're going to look at for a second, you can use, because of this, you can use the lattice attacks. This is the follow-up article to receive the private key to a Bitcoin address. This is insane. Yeah, and there's all this math here that we'll get into quickly right now. So what you have here, yes. So the DSA, so this basically, what this all revolves around is, and let me find the actual page for this because I have it here. Is speed this, is it this one? Yeah. The way you actually reverse that private key and how you pull it is using math, uh, which is elliptical curves. Now, due to the interest of time, because I've already screwed up enough, I'm not going to go fully into one, which I would normally do. I can do this as a follow-up episode, what an elliptical curve is, and the whole math around that, which I'm already thinking about the equations to this, and it's making my brain heat up like it's an RTX 3060. But let's see if I can. I'm going to quickly read this for half a second, and I'm going to see if I can sum it up. Okay, so they're using integer modular operations. Yep. And they're using the points between them as well as the divisor. Yep, this sounds about right. And this is where you would run it. We might actually run this one, so this will be fun. So let's go back to the OG article here. Let's see. There we go. So let's find the exact weak point of the math here. All right, so yep, it's using all the different points in the elliptical curve. Secret key, which is X, will still be random valued integers. And it works the same as the DSA, but it's just a different group. Public key, which is Y, is still computed as that which is generated from X, hence generated from the private key, except G, the generation is now the point on the elliptical curve. This is how they're basically consistently randomizing the numbers. So let's see here. So as before, you compute that value, but now the value at the point elliptical curve, so you can take the X coordinated point and compare it to the value of R, which is the signature, and between the signature and the private key, using the math, you'd be able to pull out the public key from that. You might be one or two numbers or letters off, and you would have to kind of go through that, or there might be a better math that cleans that up, but that's roughly how that goes. So, yeah, the signer must not only keep their private key secret, but also all the nonsenses that they are generated are also secret. Remember, we covered this one, we did how blockchains work. We covered the nonces, as well as both times that we did crypto zombies. We learned about them with the Solidia contracting. So even if the stinger keeps nonsenses secret, if its accent repeats one of them, the secret key can be recovered immediately. So as I said, saying nonsense is ever disclosed, secret key can be recovered, which breaks the entire signature system, and it's really freaking fragile. And normally, in the past, you would not really be that concerned about this because this would be only a light attack, and you could put just easy things like a line or two of code that would prevent this. But if you did have anything like this, where you're not actually covering your nonces, you can use lattice attacks in order to break the ESCA signatures. So let's see. So in this example, they found this transaction from that Bitcoin address, and then they used it to multiply the fake signatures, apply the lattice. I keep wanting to read it as lettuce, which would be hilarious. Apply the lettuce. Put the lettuce on the blockchain, maybe some croutons, and it'll be hacked. So let's see. Private key. This is insane. Yep, and there it is. They just pull last SH, and they put the proper no string as well as the public key, and just spit this whole thing out. And right there at the bottom, yep, the hex format right at the bottom, the private key was found. So that's how you're able to, we're used to like breaking passwords with math. This is how you reverse engineer to get something that's supposed to be secret with math. It's literally like, you probably, in terms of lockpicking, probably have heard of the Lishi tools, the decoding tools, which I eventually want to get and cover next year, where basically as you pick it, it also tells you the positions of the pins, so that if you know the number sequence for those positions, you can just recreate the keys. This is going a step further. So if that's like Arch Linux, then what they just did was Gentoo shit, meaning that they literally normal locked pick the lock, but then used mathematical equations to figure out the positionings based on just pushing the different pins, not even using a turning tool, and then use the math to then be able to figure out the number sequence to the key to then print out the key. You can kind of, by the way, do something like this, and again, that'll be a topic for next year, Master of Unlocking using master keying, but normally you'd have to go into a lot of stuff, and it doesn't decipher the entire master keying system normally. This does, in terms of code-wise. This is just crazy. Let's see. We're going to cover 2 more on here, and then I think we'll be done with the episode. And again, I really recommend, I'm going to actually go back here, and I'm going to copy it. It's cryptodeeptech.ru. Really awesome, cool tools, really amazing research, both done by themselves and compiled from other sources. I am just legit impressed here. So, 2 more. So the 2 more I'm going to pick here is they have an all article of how to, I love this, parse blockchain transactions to a Google Drive folder. So basically, once you have access, like we talked about for the raw text file through the SA256, and you can do all that breakage, they then made a tool where when you put in basically an algorithm, it figures out through math and programming the raw text file, and then dumps it to a Google Drive that you have designated. So that way it just constantly makes a list that you can access anytime, just keeping the tabs on at any address. It's impressive. Let's see here. This is the thing. Remember I said that there was a piece that was in Bash and we didn't know? This is the part in Bash. That makes sense because you are indexing and then sending over all the information from the raw text files. So that's pretty neat. And then let's see if we can look at and run one last thing here. We can look at that another time, because these are honestly, some of these could be their own episodes. I'm just going to read this headline. I'm not going to go into it, but this is nuts. This will definitely be a future episode where we talk about this bit of news. Cryptocurrency of Bitcoin against Quan Shi, and I keep thinking of the Mortal Kombat character, quantum computer from Chinese search engine giant Baidu. So if you haven't heard, Baidu has actually made a public quantum computer that sits on a cloud, and basically they created a tool called Quan Shi, where basically you can leverage the power of the quantum math on that to decode algorithms and reverse engineer addresses, and basically all the brunt workforce that you would normally use I love that these are little gifts that you would normally have to use on your end. You'd have to get expensive GPUs and CPUs and lots of RAM. You might even have to network a lot of computers locally, or just do endless amount of virtual and or physical server racks in order to build this up. This whole public quantum machine does for you, which is, I wonder if they talked about that. There was a quantum computing village this year at DEF CON, and I wonder if they covered that. If not, I'll try to talk to some of the people at Crypto Deep Tech and see if I can help them present that at the quantum village. That's pretty neat. So that wasn't the actual last thing. The last thing is near the end here. Let's see. Okay, so this is actually a better view, by the way, of the math I was talking about. Again, due to time, I'm not going to go into math because we're literally going to end the stream in like 2 minutes. so that's that. But this is like a better example, and this is actually how you would set up the Miller's algorithm with the math in order to do the loop that would basically break the SCCP, the 256K, to get the raw text file stuff on the elliptical curve. Thus, you can reverse engineer what the private keys and stuff are, which is a publicly available information, which is crazy. So the last one I'm actually going to look into here is Bitcoin wallet recovery by EDCA short signatures. So we've covered, again, this is probably the 3rd episode where we really got into DSA signatures. And if you can reverse engineer the key for that, as we show, you can do a complete recovery of a Bitcoin wallet, which, again, never mind just attacks, that could just be useful for, as we learned with the idiots programmers at the Optify. I say that like I'm a programming genius when I'm not. That you might not be able to, if you obviously crash the chain, it doesn't work, but on like the intermediate level between the point on the wallet and the user, you can actually recover the wallets, in this case, Bitcoin wallets. But another way that you can do this, as I said, building on that, is using the short signature features that the ECDSA to live for a full recovery here. So let's see here. So let's see how they broke this down. So the raw text file, can restore the bit wallet through the signatures. So this is actually using that previous tool, not Quanshi, but we're using the same the Google Drive terminal. I definitely think what we might do here is, unfortunately, this is going to be one of the few sad episodes where we're not going to actually run any code, just due to time, my attention span, and other things. But I'm glad that we're covering this in this episode, and at least we can look at how this is all set up and built. I will definitely do a future episode. It might even be the episode later this month where I'm going to actually test a bunch of these on my own time, and we will run at least one of these before we go into whatever main topic of that episode, because I don't think we'd be able to cover an entire episode of just running one of these, but we could go into a deep dive of other subjects, like a deeper one into ESDCAs and elliptical curve math, and why it's a bad idea now to use it for random number generators just as is, and not use other cryptological math on top of that, and so on. But yeah, basically, this is what I really wanted to cover. This is Crypto Deep Tech. So again, you can find them at cryptodeeptech.ru. Ran also the website and organization through a bunch of tests, meaning that website seems legit, seems sound. I don't think, it seems like they're just literally researching and putting tools. I haven't found any sort of whether lurking on IRC or anything of anyone using this for any truly malicious stuff, unlike what happened with potentially could have happened with Avalanche. But I like how they're one of the few things I've seen in cryptocurrency and blockchain tech where, it's not a bug bounty page, which again we will cover in a future episode, but where they're doing research, they're using math and code to find vulnerabilities, particularly with Bitcoin, and not only making tools and publishing them online in testnets so you can test these things out, but also that's one of the matrix cats in here in my weird virtual reality environment. I actually wonder if I could use the white screen as a green screen. That might be an interesting test in the future. But anyhow, I'm being distracted. But what I also love is how all of their tools and research is iterative. So you can literally go to the third article, because this blog's only 2 pages long. They just started. But you can go in, and as you read and go on from back then to present day, you can start out with the first tool and then use the math and code knowledge of that, or the setup you did to that, to build on a new tool release. So I also love how everything's iterative. So yeah, that was it for our show today. Let's go back to the chatting window. We had a bit of a chatter earlier, especially I was watching 2 people figure out something, so thanks for the tech help in that. Not for me, but for the other person. But it seemed like we had, again, we're getting thumbs up now, that we had a lot of people really watching and learning from this. Again, this was finding this blog and stuff was a learning experience for me, as sometimes it is on the show. I want to thank everyone for watching today's episode of Crypto Barons, despite us being 8 billion years late because I'm dumb. I'm going to let you know when the next episodes are going to be. So the next episode of Crypto Barons is going to be on the 24th. Give me 1 second to see if, I actually have a quick note on what the episode topic's going to be, because if I don't, that means everyone's going to find out when I announce it 2 weeks from now. Let's look here. And at least now, for now, the Linux subsystem stuff is updated. Let's go into this folder. Sure. And as I'm blabbing about this, as I quickly look for this, I also want to remind that once again, even when we're not streaming up until the end of October, and I'm going to post the last links for this, we are raising funds for the National Abortion Federation charity drive. We are still at $30. Our goal we put in, because we tried to lowball it, was $400. I know I've been inconsistently streaming, and that's why we haven't been really getting a lot of donations in. And just to also clarify about those donations, one, it's handled through Tiltify. We don't touch any of the money. They're a reputable organization. You can publicly look them up online. They work with tons of charities. And two, even if we don't meet the arbitrary goal, all the money that gets that you've donated, including the current $30, which will hopefully increase by the end of October, will still all go to the National Abortion Federation. And this is going to help not only with people who have uteruses who are just ungodly amounts of suffering right now. I can't even comprehend it, but there's also just base privacy and human decency stuff that affects all of us in the United States. That, in the same way we are an EFA member and we support the EFF and mental health hackers and a bunch of other things. This to us, like, even if you remove all the quote political stuff, which you can't out of it, is ultimately a privacy and security issue at a ethical, legal, and biological level. And we have the lawyers me at DEF CON. We have Ethics Village. This is important to us as hackers. So let me just double check. Let's see. Oh, you know why it probably didn't show up? Hang on. This is probably why. Because I don't think I saved it as a TXT. I saved it as like a general. See, it should be in here. The conferences. This is like all this. This is the stuff that you can't see on the screen. It's all the super secret squirrel of us like planning what we're going to be doing for the end of this year up until early next year. Some of this stuff is already on our meetup.com, which again, when you go to the Medium blog, and I'll show that in a moment, you can find that all there. So here we go. So let's see if I have... Oh, awesome. Okay, so once again, I can wrap up the stream. We usually, Crypto Barons is usually broadcasted on, except for delays like today, the second and fourth Saturday of the month. So our next stream will be on September 24th. Hopefully I'll have access to the Void again. We'll see. And this is an episode that I'm also really excited about that's been in the making for like 3 months at this point. We're going to be looking at the Tezos. Hope I said that. Tezos, I pronounce it Tezos, the Tezos blockchain, which is purported to be a very hardened and like security anti-hacker focused chain. So we're going to take a look at it. We'll try to run some things, and maybe we'll even do some testing on it and see if it's as secure as people think and say it is. Maybe it is. Maybe a noob like me can actually just wave a ham sandwich next to it and break it. Who knows? I can tell you right now that if everything goes as planned, the next Master of Unlocking episode will be on the 18th. And again, we have our physical meetup on the 16th. Regardless of what happens, we're going to announce stuff for that either tomorrow or Monday. We're going to try to do the live stream portion the day after on the 17th, but I will warn that it might happen instead on like the 23rd or something like that, just because there's a speaker and they're trying to figure out their schedule, and we would love to have them, so we're giving them a bit more time. So yeah, that was the end of the episode. Again, thank you all for watching this. Couple of links before we go offline here, and I can pass out and yell into the void because trying to get this thing to connect to the internet here in the underground super secret hacker bunker was a whole thing. Not because of the super secret hacker bunker. This whole thing that I'm in is elitely set up. It's just to use a quote about an old guy who was recommended using Viagra. It's like, I'm gonna do a reverse one. It's like hanging up a broken chandelier in a 5-star hotel, where everything's been great. It's just this machine's a piece of shit, and I can't wait to replace it. But once again, some links. Again, if you want to donate, even when we're not live streaming, there's the donation link. You can also, quickly before we go off, scan the QR code that will take you to Tiltify. I promise it's not QR code hack. Or if you're on Twitch, you can see the little widget where you can donate anytime. Again, we're still doing stuff at our website, so if you want to check us out, we recommend our Medium blog at defcon201.meetup.com. Once again, I'm going to post our link tree to all of our social and live streaming media, which is linktr.ee/defcon201. That has everything, including our popular Twitter page at defcon21nj and our popular Instagram page at defcon21. We're on all sorts of things. You can all check that out. And then finally, we're trying to kind of get this running because we also are I'm going to be doing this for the next couple of days. Probably on Wednesday, our IRC one of them will probably go up as at least a placeholder. But if you do want to reach out and chat to us and you're not on social medias, but you're on Discord, we do have a Discord. I try to be on there as much as possible, even though life keeps me from it. And that's where it is. There you go. So yeah, again, thank you for watching this episode of Crypto Barons. I can't wait to talk about the Tezos security blockchain on the 24th. I can't wait to see you all physically on the 16th at Helen's Pizza in Jersey City, New Jersey from, I believe it's going to be 7 to 10 p.m., but there's also a festival going on around there, so we might change it by an hour or so. And I can't wait to do our live stream this month for our meeting because it's going to be excited. So thank you for watching our show. If you're on Twitch, stay on Twitch. We're going to raid someone immediately after this. I want you to say hi to whoever we raid. It might be a programming thing, a making thing, something bizarre, VTuber, who knows, but I want you to say hi to them. Hack the planet, Dirty Jersey represents, and remember that you need to completely do set up. So even if you've set everything up perfectly, if you haven't connected the internet, check connecting to the internet, because your computer might be worse than a potato with a light bulb in it, like in this case, and then you're delayed for 8 billion hours, so you lose half of your viewers because you are a hacker genius, so when you make mistakes, they are terrifying. So anyhow, thank you for all that. Enjoy the music again. If you're on Twitch, say hi to who we rate in Twitch. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Peace out. Enjoy yourself. Have a great night. Enjoy the music.
Dolly.